How did this study get underway?
So Dr. Aaron Dash, who is the CEO of NeuroEM, used to be a scientist here at USF. And when he was here, he worked on this technology with mice and found that it was successful. And so in the years since he's left, he's developed it so that it could be tested out in humans.
Can I do this just your hair just to make sure it's not scratching on the mic? Sorry to be a pain.
No problem.
So when did it get underway? When did things officially start?
So last year, we were contacted by Dr. Aaron Dash to set up this pilot study testing out the device in a small number of patients. Anytime we're testing out new treatments for illnesses, there has to be a pilot study that shows that it's safe and effective before you move on to bigger studies.
Right.
So this was the initial study in patients, in humans, I should say. So it's very small. I want to make that clear. We've gotten a lot of interest, obviously, since the results were interesting and positive in a field where we've had a lot of failures. But we've had people kind of knocking down the door with interest in this, particularly because it is not a pill. It's not something that's going to interact with other drugs and things, and it's not something that we're able to offer people right now.
Can you, going off of that, tell me a little bit about the device then?
So it is a soft helmet that people wear for about an hour twice a day, and they can do pretty much anything around the house. They can fold the laundry, watch TV, go about their business. They don't really feel much of anything, and it delivers this degree of electromagnetic radiation that seems to help with both memory and also moving some of the markers that we use to measure Alzheimer's. So that's where this study for me was very interesting, because it's important to understand there was no placebo group. So in most research, there's a group that gets a sham treatment or a fake treatment, because that's the only way we know if the real treatment works. And for this trial, for this study, or I should say for this device, that will be coming now that we've done the first study. So there's always a risk that there will be a placebo effect where people think it's doing something, but it's really not. So when we saw that not only were the test scores improving in some of the subjects, but their amyloid markers in their blood and spinal fluid were also changing, that indicates that the device is actually doing something, and that's not a placebo effect.
So what does it do? What kind of scientifically, specifically does it do to a person?
Well, I don't know that we know everything. We do know that it is somehow breaking up the amyloid plaques, and one of the things that they measured was the amount of amyloid, which in persons with Alzheimer's disease, they have a buildup of amyloid plaques in their brain, but the amount of circulating amyloid is actually lower because it's clumped into these plaques. And in the people in whom the test scores improved, they also showed an increase in circulating amyloid, meaning that it was kind of somehow breaking up those plaques. And then the next step would be removing it. But there is a large group of people in the scientific community that believes that amyloid is the real target for treating Alzheimer's disease.
So what were the results like, these test scores?
So several of the subjects showed that compared to the beginning when they started, their test scores went up in certain aspects of memory and thinking, not necessarily across the board. In some people, they stayed about the same, but particularly in the people where there was clear breakup of the amyloid plaques, there was also, a increase in cognitive function where they were doing better than they had when they started. Yes and no. So yes, there is a very effective treatment for depression, transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, that is FDA approved. It works very well. That dose of magnetic field is significantly lower than it is with this device. And the device that's used in this study had sensors several places in the helmet, whereas for TMS for depression, it's a very specific area that they're focusing on delivering that to.
Okay, that makes sense. So what's next? This is such a small thing.
Well, my understanding is that the company is taking this data and looking at, writing a protocol that would include subjects at various sites around the country. Obviously, there would be a placebo group in that trial, so some people will end up getting devices that either aren't turned on or don't have the ability to deliver any magnetic field, but that's going to be the next step. I don't know what their plans are or what the timeline is for that, but that will be the next thing, and I'm sure that it's coming given the success of this first study.
So you can say for sure that it was a success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are, and we've been a part of, many trials where there was not any movement in the markers, where there was very little, if any, difference as far as cognitive testing before or after the treatment in people who were really getting treatment. So in this study, even though it was very tiny, it's encouraging to see, both cognitive and biomarker results going in the same direction, the right direction.
Can you talk a little bit about